So my experiences with women, like let's say crushes. So in high school and college, I used to get some pretty intense overthinking with the crushes that I'd have. And so like I was always too shy to actually like say anything to them. And I'd always just like overthink about them, come home, like be thinking about whichever girl it was for like the entire night, pretending that I was like lying next to her. And nothing really, to be honest, nothing really happened. Like high school and college, I was like pretty, very, very inexperienced with women, and I never really did anything with these crushes. But it was about the time when I was about 19 was when I actually started having like real experiences, actually having sex with these girls. And that was like my first serious relationship. And I think that that relationship as well was potentially the cause or like an influence of one of the issues that I wanted to speak to you, which was that I find it hard to trust women, to not think that they're like lying about stuff or they're hiding messages or anything. And I think it hit me about a week or two ago that the first like proper girlfriend I had, like I had a girlfriend in college, like 17 years old, but we didn't really exactly do anything and we were only together for like a month or two. But the first one I had, which I truly, truly felt like I loved her and we talked about like kids and everything, we were together. I remember that she would hide like a lot of stuff and she would lie about a lot of stuff as well. And I think that that's potentially where some trust issues came up from. So what comes into mind now is one time she just casually kind of mentioned that she was like speaking to some guy on Snapchat that she knew from high school or something. And I got that gut feeling. And so if it's some random guy, it's like, it was okay. But obviously, at least in my boundary, if it's some guy that you've been with before, especially sexually, that's obviously going to make me feel like insecure. So I ask her that, and she says no, but I still have the gut feeling, and like this happened for a while. Eventually, it comes out it's the truth that like, it's a guy that she's been with previously, and they're kind of like talking about something which isn't exactly maybe like I don't know what the messages were, but obviously just kind of seeing that she's in communication with someone that she's previously been with and then also lied about it was a huge source of my overthinking. And the same happened many times with just random pieces of information that would like pop up and she'd just kind of lie about it till potentially days or weeks later till eventually the truth would come out. And it's like you get hit twice this way with the lie but also with the truth at the same time. And yeah, but I mean, let's talk about what you have in mind for what I've just said then.
Yeah, so the first ever serious relationship was with this girl who you really cared for, but that had trouble telling the truth. She would talk with a guy she'd been with previously. How did you find out the truth?
It was like there was a certain way that I had to, like, it would be, imagine a 3 hour conversation of tears of almost like an interrogation, and me almost like just constantly just saying, oh, you can tell me the truth, I won't be upset. Or probably I don't know if I was lying or not, but like, I was saying like, you just tell me, like, I'd prefer if you told me, I'm not going to be upset or whatever. You can tell me, like, was it someone you've kissed before? And she'd like say no, and I'd be like, come on, like, you've got to admit it, like, you probably did kiss this guy. And she's like, yeah, I did. And then I'm like, that straight away is like, that just hurts, but I'm still going with it. And then I'm like, okay, like, you've kissed this guy, but is it someone you've been sexual with before? No, she's like, no, it's just the kiss. Like an hour later into the same conversation and into like the interrogation that we're going through, it comes up, like more and more details come up. And so like, yeah, like just, I'm reliving it right now.
That's okay. I know reliving past memories can make us feel awful, can make us think of ourselves, what's the word? In a cringe light. We can cringe at our past memories. But that's okay. I mean, if we knew the things we knew today, things wouldn't have been the same then, right? Can't judge past us, because past us made us today us, yeah. The person we are now. So you would go into conversations, with hour-long conversations with tears, with agony, with just, you know, trying to ask and ask and ask until you get the truth out. So tell me more about that relationship. What ended up happening? How did it develop from there?
So at this point, I don't think I had any more trust left in her, but I was still, this was like the first woman I'd truly been with, the first girl I had sex with, the first like serious relationship and everything. And so she had like a very special place. Like, sorry?
How long in the relationship did you first find out about this guy?
This was probably about a month into us being like fully together.
Right. And what was the relationship like before? Like, was it vague? Was it friends? Was it dating? What was it?
So it was kind of like, it was online because we met through Facebook and we were both going to the same university. And so we like spoke to each other on like one of the group chats and we spoke there. And so I believe for about 2 months beforehand, we would just kind of like speak online or on Skype or something. And so at that, we weren't fully like in a relationship, but we were speaking almost every single day for a few hours. And then as soon as we both moved into university in September, it was like, I think pretty much on the first day, I made her my girlfriend. And I remember it was like very, very good. It was the first girlfriend I had ever had. And probably about, so this was September, probably about October, maybe November time, about 1 to 2 months later, is when the trust issues and the all of these like lies and everything started really coming out.
So was it the first instance that you ever noticed something sketchy, something weird when she was texting a guy on Snapchat?
I remember there being like a fair amount, not exactly just specifically the same thing of like a guy on Snapchat, but I remember there was like a few guys I felt insecure about, because at this point I was very, the anxious attachment style, I was like very observant. And so I remember I with through maybe like details we kind of talked about, I kind of knew the guys she had been with previously before me. And that always made me feel like very insecure and very maybe unsafe, because this was the first woman I'd been with. I was committed to her straight away. And it made me feel something negative to see and to realize that she had experiences before me, which obviously like now that I'm like more mature and stuff, I understand it's completely normal. But at least then I would almost go into like a detective mode where if, for example, we spoke about some sexual experience that we've previously had, and she maybe said, oh yeah, like there was this one guy I hooked up with last year. It's like, I'll find him on Instagram within 5 minutes. And now I'm looking at this guy's Instagram page, like feeling shit about myself.
You look at the, you know, you'd find the guy's Instagram, what would you feel shit about?
So I remember it was, so in bodybuilding, when you do like weightlifting, you get this almost like internal critique and comparison where you're always like checking your body against someone else's. And I remember that like the hit when I saw that this guy that I'd seen was more muscular than me. And that hurt. I don't know if it's ego or something, that really hurt, thinking that this guy was, that she had been with a guy who's more muscular, because that I think definitely bred into some kind of like inferiority feel. Yeah, like a feeling of being inferior.
Does that only happen with people who lift?
Yeah, generally. From the other guys, like let's say there's 3 guys that come to mind right now with this girl that I had kind of like known. I shouldn't have known these guys, nothing to do with me, like no link in my social circle or anything. But 3 guys, if I can remember them right now, I only truly felt somewhat inferior to the first guy that I've just mentioned then. And the 2 other guys, I obviously I saw their Instagram too, and they didn't lift. And so it wasn't a feeling of inferiority with those, but it was more that it was the trust issue that came from the other 2 guys, because she had kind of like lied about her communication with them.
Right. So what would be the questions you'd be asking yourself? Is he is the other guy what?
So with the guy who lifted with the guy who was like in better shape than me, I remember thinking, okay, he was better than me, whether they were like fully together in like a dating or with just like a casual hookup. I was thinking, okay, in pretty much every way, he was probably better than me. That was almost potentially the feeling. And it was almost like I needed reassurance that he wasn't. But of course, I didn't want to like bring it up to seem like insecure. So I never exactly like said to her, like, oh, was this random guy better than me at sex or something? So I never exactly like brought that up. But that's probably like the feeling that I had. With the other guys, it wasn't so much the same. It was more the guy in particular wasn't actually the thing I was overthinking about. So I wasn't, oh, this guy right here. It was more so that it was the situation with my girlfriend, with these guys, where it was just, it used to make me feel incredibly uncomfortable to think that my girlfriend, who I've only been with her, not even done anything sexual with any girl, like anything like properly sexual with any other girl. And of course, she was a few years older than me, so she had sex with like a couple of guys by this point. And just the thought of that was like extremely uncomfortable. And then kind of being able to put the face onto the guy, that was incredibly tough for me to handle at the time. And so then I think worst case scenario is that then she's kind of like still in communication with these guys. And that's when I'd say like the relationship went into like a very, very deep downfall.
So we started comparing ourselves with that other guy. Just to get a better understanding, are you saying more muscular, or what is the correlation? I'm trying to make the link. So more muscular equals better?
Yeah, absolutely.
Better at what?
Just everything. At least that's the perception I definitely had then, and I still have somewhat right now. Just especially in terms of, let's say, interacting with women in, let's say, exciting them, making them interested in you, making them feel like sexually attracted to you. I'd say it's like better at like almost everything. Of course, other factors would come into it as well, but I think especially back then, I was blind to personality traits that would of course be like very, very significant in a relationship or experiences with women. And so I was almost like tunnel visioned on, okay, if he was more masculine than me, it means that he was just better, and she's had better than me, and she's probably thinking, she probably like knows that I'm worse than this guy.
Okay, so better at everything, meaning everything sexual.
Yeah.
Or is it more than everything sexual? Or mostly sexual?
I'd say some of the like other parts of life would come into that as well. So even outside of the bedroom, we could say then it'd be more confident, more dominant, more of like a leader, more masculine.
More masculine. More of a leader. Okay. And you said even today you have, this perception. I mean, just basing my answer off of research, it is true that with high obesity, it tends to not the majority of women would be appealed, find this appeal with that type of guy, but with just whatever look, really. So there could be something as too skinny, too fat, even though there are women who like guys that are really skinny, and there are women who like guys that are really chubby. They're like really into, yeah. Especially when you hear women say dad bods with heart eyes, right? How do you make sense of that?
I'd say that's more, there is definitely individual preferences that deviate away from the attraction towards the muscular body. But if I did have to give the honest opinion, I would honestly believe it's a fact, is I'd say the overwhelming majority of women are more attracted to a guy who's muscular and has the V taper upper body, especially. And so especially when I was with this girl, I was probably about 2 years into weightlifting, and I was completely obsessed with it. And so that definitely became my point of reference for whether or not I was just good enough in all senses.
Good enough. So you go back to this core belief. Good enough, right? Right. So just wanted to make that correlation clear for myself. Okay. So the fact that she had more sexual experience kind of also played a role in, you always being in doubt of whether you were, like you said, good enough sexually, good enough. Any other things you used to really focus on? So I noticed the theme of sexuality. So sex was a big theme. Any other big themes?
I'd say the truthfulness and lying. If there was two like main themes which I can remember from this relationship, it would have been them two.
Can you repeat that last bit to cut off?
If there was like main themes which I can remember from this relationship, I'd say it was the sexual insecurity, and also then the lies that gave me like a feeling of a lack of trust in this girl.
So you started noticing some lies, some things that didn't. Are you talking? Because I can see the screen moving. I can see your camera moving, but I'm not hearing you speak.
Nope. I'm talking now.
Okay, because I don't know if it's the same with you, but there's a delay on my end. So when you're talking, I'm hearing you talk right away, but the video is taking some time to kind of show me that you're talking. So I thought you were talking. Never mind. Okay. So when you started noticing that she was lying, how did the relationship progress from there? How did it develop from there?
I remember that's when it really got problematic, and it didn't feel like a healthy relationship. This was when I got the constant thoughts that anytime I essentially wasn't with her, she was going to be cheating and she was going to be with one of these guys. Yeah. So from this point, I remember it being, let's say it's about November. We were only like fully together for about 3 months. And so this point, I remember feeling really stressed about a lot of this, because we had pretty quickly like planned our lives together. We were like really, really like seriously talking about that stuff, expecting to like stay together forever. And that visualization and the view of our house and our kids, that started to deteriorate in my mind, which was very painful, because I just couldn't trust that that's what we were going to experience. And I started to lose faith in just everything that she was saying. I would double guess the smallest things. I would just think that she would be lying about now.
So started doubting her. Did you get more confirmation that she was lying?
Yeah, so at this point, then I start going more into the interrogations, and more like random stuff comes up, and obviously I'm stalking her Instagram and everything, checking the likes of the pictures and everything, and thinking, okay, which guy's which, what's this. I don't remember how I found out about some other guy, potentially just from like asking her a question of like, who are the guys you slept with or something. And then that was like another major source of stress and lies, where, like, looking back at it now, it's like I knew when I asked for too many details, but at least when I did ask for these details, like essentially like she lied about it for probably a couple of weeks. Then I kind of like ask again kind of thing, and then eventually like the truth comes out of, and I just remember that being like incredibly painful. So this phase of me asking for too many details, her lying about the details, and then eventually telling the truth of those details lasted for like a solid like 2 months or so, up until we eventually broke up.
So how long was the relationship all in all?
So she was officially my girlfriend for about 3 months, and we were like very close, like in terms of like talking online, for a couple of months before that as well.
Right. All right. And what was the breakup like?
So obviously through this time, I didn't have trust in her. I didn't exactly want to like, I wasn't like fully wanting to be with her, but I still felt unable to break up with her, even though I would get the thought, and I would almost debate it quite a lot to think, okay, maybe I can just be fully single. I'm in university. Maybe I should be like experiencing other girls. Maybe I shouldn't be dating right now. But I'd always go back to that comforting attachment. And so I was honestly never really able to break up with her. She really didn't want to break up with me. And eventually, though, with the stress of all this, she had some pretty severe health problems, as like genetically before this as well. And they started to really flare up with the extra stress she was getting from university, and also definitely from our relationship. So her health getting a lot worse, her hair's literally starting to fall out and everything. And then she just kind of breaks down one day, and we think that it's a big struggle. Like her going to university, her family almost acknowledged that like she probably wouldn't stay in university. It was almost like a test to see. And I remember her we kind of saying like, yeah, maybe you're not really up for this just yet. Maybe you do have to go home. And so she just called her mom one time, just cried straight away. And it's like her mom kind of knew almost instantly, where she said like, oh, have you had enough of uni? Do you want to come back home? And so we organized it, and then her parents like drove up, and it was just kind of assumed that obviously like now that she's going back, she lives like 100, 200 miles away, that we just weren't going to kind of like stay together. And so she goes, I get like a very, very heart-ripping detachment, which lasts for like a solid like month of like honestly like a month of like depression, like a very like I did nothing, I didn't speak to anyone, I just kind of stayed in my room and just cried a lot. And we stayed in contact a little bit, and she came down one more time as well, which we somewhat reconnected, but it was almost the same issue again, which I couldn't trust her. And almost immediately after that, I started like being single. I started to like go back to like parties and clubs and everything, meeting new girls. And from that point, honestly, she somewhat quickly dropped out of my mind.
Right. So the more you started going out, the more she'd start, popping out of your mind. The less frequently you think about her, the better able you were to, move on from this relationship.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so that was the first relationship, the first serious relationship, like you said. You were 19. and it lasted so officially for 3 months, right?
That's right.
What about the second relationship? How long after the second relationship come?
So this was an interesting one. This was, so that first girl was in my first year of university, ended about December. Then I had my entire first year, so December all the way to about May or June, had that just single. And then in my second year of university, I'm a lot more social, making a lot more friends. I'm meeting a lot more girls. I'm getting good at it now as well. And so there was a couple of girls who were just in my friends group. Like we would just like go out with them. And eventually I started to like sleep with this one girl. And we got into each other pretty, no, actually, no, I wouldn't even say it was quickly or anything, but I remember us like vibing very well together. And so with me and her, we started at least getting some kind of emotional connection in probably within a month or 2 months of university starting. Like definitely by November, like let's say October. Yeah, by about October. So literally a month into university of our like we formed this little friendship group of like 5, 6 people. So about a month into that, about October 2018, and then we were, let's say at least she was like in my life up until May 2020. Or
October till May.
Yeah, so it was October 2018, I believe. So it was like a solid like 2.5, maybe even pushing 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah. Yeah, right. About 2 years, 7 months, something like that.
Yeah. All right. And when did this one end? You said May, what year?
May 2020, so last year. So I was still living in Manchester in my student city with her. So I lived with her as well for a long time. And then finally, when everything was ending, I moved back home to my parents' house here, May 2020.
May 2020 ended things. Okay, so we're not going to go too deep into the second relationship yet. We'll do that. We'll do more of that next week. But kind of what I want us to do is, reflect on the first relationship a little bit. Because here's the thing. So when it comes to cheating, not being loyal, not, being, what's the word, monogamous? Is that the right word? I know monogamy is the word, but what's the adjective? Someone monogamous? You get what I mean, hopefully. What we tend to do is when we're cheated on, we tend to really deflect that blame onto us, and we take it to our core that it must mean we're not good enough or unlovable, or I'm just not enough for women. They'll always cheat on me because I'll never be enough for them. They'll always want more because I'm defective. I'm, whatever that fill in the blank is I make that assumption and I run forward with it. Run forward with that assumption. So what it does, what having this assumption does is makes us doubt everything and anything that the person does. even if it isn't obvious. Now, the examples you gave me, her texting, someone she used to sleep with before, someone who she's been with before. So you've also had proof, which ultimately confirms the bias that I already have, that, I'm not enough. Here's the evidence, I'm not enough for her. Why would she be talking to someone else if I was enough? And here's the misconception is I tend to take the blame for someone else's actions. So let's talk about cheating. Do you still think all women cheat?
No.
Most women cheat?
Potentially.
Okay, so potentially most women cheat.
I would say guys as well, to be honest. I would say I think most people are pretty unfaithful, especially with the modern inventions of like social media, dating apps and everything.
Okay. Yeah. Luckily, there's some science behind the cheating, but we'll be getting to that shortly. So potentially most people cheat. That's what we're going with, right? So what science shows us is that there is a number of people who cheat. Is it the majority? Scientifically, the majority of people don't cheat scientifically. Do we have thoughts? Do we, fantasize from time to time? Yes, we do. Do we act on them? Most people don't. So with a lot of people, we walk past someone, we walk past, something, we might fantasize, we might daydream, we might, it might not be a specific person. It might just be like, I wish someone would, just do this to me or do that with me. But essentially, do most people cheat? And you believe that the reason for saying yes is today's technology and the culture. I mean, your experience is pretty filled with examples of people cheating. How about we do the research? Have you ever done the research?
No.
So how about for next week, we come with the research on cheating? Because it would be pretty interesting to actually know what most people think. If most people cheat, if most people would cheat. I mean, there's a lot of mixed findings, but we also have to start learning how to find the, what's the word? Reliable evidence, because almost anyone can write an article nowadays. You don't need to be credible to write an article. You just need internet. So it's important to find who the person is, who the organization is publishing this article, that it's scientific, that it's that the sample size is big enough, that it's generalizable, that it's so many factors. So let me write it down. So research, statistics on cheating. That's one. And then 2 is talk about why people cheat. So I'll just throw this out. I know you might have your doubts. I'll just throw this out and we'll continue the conversation next time to kind of set the tone and expectations for next session. So why do people cheat? Most of the time, it's not because of the partner we're with. It's just with the person we are. It's just that we've never felt contempt. We've always needed more love than any one person can ever give us, no matter who the person is. So that's why I say, it's important to go back and revisit those relationships, because they start making sense. We start noticing patterns in the other person, and that they never talk to one guy, right? There were multiple guys that they would talk to. It would never be just one person that they latch on. And sometimes, people latch on to one person because the other person is easily available. But, the more able someone is to have multiple partners. So with someone who cheats, the preference is the more the better. That's generally the rule. With someone who cheats, is generally you find multiple people, or they would like to have multiple people. Maybe they're inaccessible, maybe. And then in rare situation, it's because they're not satisfied with the relationship. But that's very rare. Much rarer. It's definitely not the majority. With the majority, it's that it's their preference. They have this need, they have this gap, they have this inexperience, they have this want for love, this lust for love that they must fill at all costs. And, getting one person's validation is nice, but the more people can validate me and tell me and make me feel like I'm sexy, I'm good looking, I'm beautiful, the better I'll feel. Because with someone
Sounds like me.
Sounds like who?
That sounds like me. Like everything you've just said of the personality of the cheater, that's exactly me. We crave more love than one person can give us, and we want to take as much as possible. And I can like see myself not exactly acting like that, but really having the inclination to act like that. I've never cheated when I've committed to a person. I've never cheated. I've never broke that promise. But I feel like I'm more inclined to than potentially the average person would be. I'd like to discuss that for the next call, actually.
And I hate to say this last minute of the session, because it might be a big shocker, but it has a big, and when you're going to do the research, you're going to find that it has a big genetic factor.
Mm-hmm.
So remember when you told me about your dad. So that's genetic predisposition.
Yeah.
Which is why you just told me. Being genetically predisposed doesn't mean anything except that, like you said, I'm prone to if I go down a certain road. But the fact that we're here today, we're here to shed light on what could push someone down that road. And even if you ever go through it, you're going to notice and learn that, it's never about the person. And even now, when you connect with those feelings that you're thinking about, I'm never content with one person, you can start to realize that it's not really about the person you're with, is it? It's just anyone. You just need more. You just want more. It's just much better when you have more. That's also starting to understand, why cheating happens. It's not about, most of the time, it's not about the person we're with. It's about us. We just want more. It's like Pringles. You can never have one.
I want all this. I'll tip the bottle upside down.
Bad joke, bad timing. But yeah.
I appreciate that.
So we'll continue that. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shaba.
Can you do same time next week?
So next Friday. Yeah, can do.
Awesome. Great. So in that case, I'll see you same next Friday. All right.
Thank you so much. Very, very grateful for the show.
Anytime. Look forward to continuing, picking up where we left.
Thank you. Have an awesome day.
See you too. Have an awesome day as well.
Take care.